Up until this point, Realme used to launch its sort of mid-range and upper mid-range number series with a vanilla model and a Pro model. Well, this time, they've changed it up a bit by first launching a Realme 9 Pro and now a Realme 9 Pro Plus. Today, we're looking at the former. Realme 9 Pro comes in two colors, Sunrise Blue and this Aurora Green. One of the features that the brand wanted to highlight was the light shift design, which basically allows the phone to change color when it's exposed to sunlight. Well, there could be other specific conditions that must be met before that happens, but unfortunately, that's only available on the Blue model, which is I guess okay for exclusivity, but you're basically paying the same price whichever color you choose, so that's a bit weird. Anyway, the phone weighs 195 grams, which is almost the same weight as an adult hamster if you wanted some comparison, and 8.5mm thin. Despite its size, the fingerprint scanner and power button are smartly placed, such that my thumb lands on it naturally when I hold the phone. Given that, getting a good grip, even with my bigger than usual hands, can take some adjustments. There is a protruding band that surrounds the device, which I personally like as it gives a contrast between the glossy rear and the screen. Speaking of which, the camera module also protrudes so the device wobbles a bit when on a flat surface. The screen is a 6.6-inch IPS LCD with 120Hz adaptive refresh rate, which means it can go down to as low as 24Hz depending on what you're doing, and 240Hz touch sampling rate. Screen-to-body ratio is 90.8%, which means you still have enough bezels to get a good handle on the phone, especially when in landscape mode. At max brightness, the screen is more than usable in direct sunlight and colors have good saturation, though not as punchy as an AMOLED panel. Let's talk about the processing package. So Realme is finally pushing for 5G on its upper mid-range lineup, and the chip they chose is the Snapdragon 695, which by the way is a very efficient processor and performs well too. Best performing chipset in this price range? Probably not, but it should be up there in the list. You get 8 gigs of RAM with an option to add up to 5 gigs of virtual RAM using the RAM expansion feature and 120 gigs of storage, plus the option to use a microSD card via a hybrid SIM tray. At the back of the Realme 9 Pro are 3 cameras. There's a 64MP main, 8MP ultra-wide, and a 2MP macro lens. While I like the inclusion of an ultra-wide, I personally prefer a depth sensor than a macro lens, as I shoot more portraits. But then again, maybe Realme thinks more people need a macro. Quality-wise, you do get photos with lots of detail and good levels of sharpness and exposure. There is this option of enabling AI scene optimization, which basically boosts colors for more vibrancy. Sometimes they can look a bit overdone, but hey, if it looks good on your social media post, then that's that. The depth of field effect looks good as well, and edge detection seems to be on point in most instances. Then there's street mode, which gives you more precise control over focus and zoom, along with several filters that you can use to add a different kind of visual flair to your photos. On the video side, for all its muscle and efficiency, there is no option to record in 4K, and what's worse is that 1080p only caps out at 30fps. There is the ultra steady feature which neutralizes shakes in your video, but at the cost of overall quality. Realme 9 Pro runs Realme UI 3.0 on top of Android 12. For this iteration of its Android skin, the brand introduces redesigned icons and a more fluid interface. They've also improved the personalization aspects, letting you pick from various color themes or allow the software to determine a theme based on your wallpaper. The AI Smooth engine allows for reduced memory usage by up to 30%, while also speeding up app launch and improving overall battery life. They've also made some improvement to make navigating the UI feel smoother and more responsive. They have also made enhancements to the floating window feature for better multitasking, and you also get more control over how apps can access your data. Using the phone as a daily driver, I could definitely tell that they did some work both on the surface and underneath to deliver a new and refreshing user experience without suffering any penalties in terms of performance. On to the things that I personally love, there's ample room to customize some of the UI elements like how icons and a quick settings panel look. Then there is the smart sidebar for quickly opening apps and for doing screen recordings. In-game, you can pull up a side panel to quickly change performance profiles and block notifications. When using wired headphones, the device was able to output audio at 192 kHz bitrate and a 24-bit sampling size, playing a FLAC file on power amp. As for the speakers, vocals are decent and the treble is airy enough, though I can hear distortion when on high volume. It also completely falls short on bass response. Lastly, battery life. The Realme 9 Pro managed to crunch in some impressive numbers on PCMark's Work 3.0 benchmark, which simulates various tasks like data manipulation, web browsing, and video editing. We tested it with the display locked to 60Hz and 120Hz refresh rates, and there was around 3.5 hours of difference. Using the supply charger, the 5000 mAh battery went from 0 to full in just past an hour, which is a pretty good result. So, would I recommend the Realme 9 Pro? For $16,990, it does bring a lot of notable bits to the table. The design looks great and refreshing. It performs well in both day-to-day tasks in gaming. It's got excellent battery life. And while a depth sensor would be more use, the cameras are still flexible and undoubtedly capable. On the downside, the speakers sound underwhelming, and the lack of 4K and 60 FPS on 1080p video recording could be a deal breaker for some people. So that was our review of the Realme 9 Pro. For more information on where and when you can get it, and for more tech-related content, you may visit gadgetphilippines.net, follow Gadget Filipinas on Facebook and YouTube, or click on the link in the description below.